The Insiders Case. Crime against peace and humanity with no body of actual crime. Going home. The resignation and future of the oil-rich Atyrau region governor Bergey Raskaliyev. From Russia with love. Looking back at Pussy Riot's verdict delivered by the judge of Moscow's Khamovniki district court. Hello, I'm Asylbek Abdulov and you're watching Vlast KZ on KpLus channel.
Я Асылбек Абдулов. Здравствуйте. Конец олимпийской сказки совпал с началом.
The end of the Olympics fever coincided with the onset of Dark August, the massacre at Aksai Gorge, special operation in the village Tan, and fires in Almaty were the reverse of the gold medal that the president's administration was so eager to wear in front of its people.
Но невысокие цены на нефть.
Neither high oil prices nor Olympic victories can save the country from poor governance. There is no longer need for the opposition press to expose malpractices and permanent failures of the political regime, as the facts and events of recent years, months and days confirm the diagnosis of the stagnating authorities.
Это уже диагноз нынешней власти.
The political leadership forgot about the state and instead are completely submerged in court intrigues and struggle against the dissent, with the culmination resulting in the trials over Kozlov, Sapargali and Aminov.
The courtroom greeted leader of unregistered Alga party Vladimir Kozlov, public activist Serik Sapargali, and oil worker Akjanat Aminov with applause. The trial over the incitement of social hatred is presided over by Judge Berdebek Murzabekov, who is famous for dishing out harsh sentences to Shetpe station residents. The trial is conducted in the state language. Despite the fact that interpreters are present in the courtroom, the accuracy of translations leaves much to be doubtful of. The defendants have 5 attorneys who literally overwhelmed the judge with petitions on the first day of hearings. Vladimir Kozlov's defense supports its client in the request to leave the media inside the courtroom. However, Judge Murzabekov only partially satisfied their petition on media coverage. What that means is cameras are allowed to film only the first 10 minutes of the first day of hearings. Next, oppositionist Vladimir Kozlov's lawyer, Alexei Plugov, read out the defendant's request to provide the legally required time to familiarize himself with the indictment, which makes up more than 1,000 pages. Murzabekov turned down the request, after which attorney Venera Sarsenbina issued a challenge to the judge, since according to Article 336 of the Code of Criminal Procedure, the defendant is allocated 3 days for familiarization. Kozlov was given less than a day. The attorneys and I believe the Code of Criminal Procedure was flagrantly violated, while the prosecutor's explanations were no good. The trial could have started with the act of refusal to familiarize with the indictment, but if he accepted the indictment yesterday, then give him 3 days. The law does not provide any other options. I believe the judge sees the article as if it doesn't exist. Article 366 of the Code of Criminal Procedure clearly states that when a defendant is given an indictment, he is allowed 3 full days to get familiarized. As you know, Vladimir Kozlov officially received the copy of the indictment on the 15th, at exactly 11:45 yesterday. Add to that 3 days, the period ends on the 18th. The petition for the judge's removal was reviewed by Aralbay Nahashubayev, who sentenced Zhanaozian oil workers a few months ago. He allowed Judge Murzabekov to keep holding the trial over political prisoners. The authorities need to find Vladimir Kozlov, Serik Sapargali and other defendants guilty of the tragedy in Zhanaozian, instead of Akorda and those who gave the order to shoot. We saw in the first trial over oil workers that the investigation failed miserably. We witnessed the unprofessionalism of our detectives, the Ministry of the Interior, the prosecutor's office, their complete ignorance, and now everything will play out again. Made-up witnesses, or witnesses who revoked their testimonies, we saw all that. The same will take place in this trial.
Мы считаем, что власть пытается переложить вину с больной головы
We believe the authorities are trying to shift the blame. Those in power are guilty of what took place in Zhanaozen. For more than half a year, they refused to enter talks with oil workers, and it is them who are to blame for the bloodshed on December 16th. Vladimir Kozlov was one of those who helped oil workers, provided them with moral support. Politician Vladimir Kozlov and his colleagues are tried on 3 counts of the criminal code. Article 164, inciting social hatred, 235, creating and taking part in an organized criminal group, and 170, calling for a violent overthrow of the constitutional regime. The harsher latter 2 articles appeared in the trial later. Witness accounts of forensic examination lab expert Nazim Medauova startled observers. A philologist, she accused Kozlov and company of attempting to overthrow the constitutional regime. When she speaks about forming a negative image of the authorities, she's absolutely correct. What other image of the authorities must an opposition party form if it wants to come to power? Or when she says that they place doubt over certain decisions made by the authorities and call for protests, she's also correct. Take a look at the Constitution. It predisposes ideological and political plurality. Second, it allows all methods available to parties to express their discontent with the authorities. That includes protests, demonstrations, a negative attitude towards the authorities, and its criticism. The only method not allowed is violence. Of all the witnesses, jurist Natalia Sokolova attracted special attention. She was convicted of inciting social hatred and received a suspended sentence under condition of active assistance to the investigation.
Согласно следственной экспертизе, не было выявлено прямых призывов к организации забастовки.
An expert examination was unable to find facts of organizing a demonstration. It all carried a presumptive nature. Another examination carried out by professors and an associate professor of philology from the Al-Farabi University concluded that there were no calls for demonstrations or social hatred. Opinions were divided, but in either case the investigation made their conclusions and I accepted them. That was considered repentance and I was released.
Я признала эту социальную угрозу. Вот и все. На том основании меня, собственно говоря, освободили. Это как раскаяние.
Inside the courtroom, Natalia Sokolova confirmed that her calculations of oil workers' wages were allegedly incorrect, and that she indeed repents, which is what was needed to be proven. The trial also attracts attention with an unusually low amount of observers. Vladimir Kozlov's wife Aliya says she is aware of facts of pressure and intimidation.
Люди, в принципе, запуганы, когда им звонят из
People are intimidated when they're called from the National Security Committee office. They are scared as it is, even talking in whispers. They are warned not to be seen anywhere near the courthouse, let alone at the trial itself. Earlier in the week, Fatima Kasyanova was detained. She was spreading leaflets on the street to inform Aktau residents about the political trial. I am giving out information. What kind of information? Do you have a permit? You don't need a permit to spread information. She was released that same day, but the region's first deputy prosecutor issued Fatima Kasyanova a warning not to violate the law, allegedly attempting to exert pressure on the court and violating the law on peaceful assemblies, marches, and demonstrations. This political trial is clearly conducted under the slogan, "Pin a charge on anyone."
В деле Козлова, Сапаргали и Аминова
The case of Kozlov, Sapargali and Aminov has no body of actual crime, but obviously the court will not even notice it. Human rights activist Evgeny Zhovtis noted in his comments that looking through the indictment or expert probes, he couldn't find which social groups were subjected to hatred on the part of defendants. It is clear that we deal with oil workers on one hand, but who's on the other? The authorities? But the authorities is not a social group. What social group the experts are talking about? Who did suffered from social hatred? These are the main questions that bother the human rights activists. Another interesting moment in the Aktau trial is the testimony of the former director of Uzenlo-Naigaski Iqbal Yeshmanov. Apparently, he was against allowing youths at the Zhanaozen Square on December 16th, but was pressured into submission by Deputy Governor Aytkulov, who told him over the phone, quote, "We have 200 police officers. We have to recapture the square." The defense points out that even in the full version of the indictment, Yishmanov testified about a similar phone conversation between Amangildi Aytkulov and former mayor of Zhanaozen Orak Sarbapev. Here is a quote of their conversation. "Let's clean up the square tomorrow. Don't be afraid. We have 200 policemen." In the end, the judge ordered a face-to-face between Yishmanov and Aytkulov, during which Yishmanov recanted his testimonies, citing emotional stress and stating that Aytkulov never said anything about recapturing squares. Venera Sarsembiana, Kozlov's attorney, rightly suggested that Yishmanov's other testimonies could have been given under the same emotional stress and promised to return to the matter at the next hearing. Another story of the week, the unexpected dismissal of the Atyrau region governor Bergey Raskaliev was also partially liked by observers to the Zhanaozen syndrome.
The sewage system in Nagyama's apartment block in Atyrau region is out of order. All the waste drains directly into the basement. The strong smell of sewer and hordes of mosquitoes attack from the very doorway. 3 disabled people are living in this apartment. The head of the family is currently at work. This young man had his legs paralyzed recently. That's the kind of environment we live in. The disastrous, unhealthy environmental situation in the region is only the tip of the iceberg of all the problems in Western Kazakhstan. Pure statistics for the first quarter of 2011 indicate that the rate of social assistance per capita in Atyrau region was lower than that in the capital by a quarter. According to this index, the region was in the top 3 outsider regions a year ago. Statistics puzzled the local population, raising the reasonable question of where are all the petroleum revenues? Even though we live in the center of the oil region, no one is taking care of us. There is no one who would think of the people's lives. Everybody is on their own. We have appealed to every instance and finally addressed to the local administration, where we were told to handle everything ourselves. Over the conversation with Kazmonite Gas, national mining company, held in July 2012, the governor of Atyrau region, Bergey Raskaliev, ordered them to do it themselves. A statement made by Atyrau region governor on Saturday caused a hurricane effect. Bergey Raskaliev said that oil and gas companies in the region have to build their own corporate kindergartens. Otherwise, the children of oil workers will be dismissed from preschools. Official Astana responded in no time. The Samruk Kazana holding, which includes Kazmonite Gas National Company as a member, prepared a special message requesting to prosecute the head of the Atyrau region for inciting social hatred. The governor stated the following at the scheduled meeting. Since 2011, we have been raising the issue of constructing corporate kindergartens. We addressed the issue to the leadership of major oil and gas companies. Since they do not comply, I have ordered to expel children of large companies' employees from the state preschool facilities. Prior to making such a statement addressed to the powerful state holding, the former governor of Atyrau region, Raskaliev, was planning to build 10 kindergartens using Republican budget funds, yet he received enough money for only 4. However, on August 15th, less than a month after Raskaliev's statement, he was removed from the office. Nazarbayev personally introduced the new governor of the region. Bakhtakozhai's Mukhambetov became a new governor of Atyrau region, and his crew in turn replaced the deputies of Bergaliev. The chief of governor's office in Atyrau region was also replaced. Change of the regional police department chief drew attention as well. The regional head of Atyrau Ministry of Interior, Rakhmatjan Dosanov, was replaced by Armanjal Mukhambetov, which seems all the more suspicious in the midst of the rumors about the arrest of ex-governor early this week. Raskaliev was allegedly detained at the airport. Local newspaper Akjaik spread the information about Bergey Raskaliev being charged with large-scale embezzlement and establishing an organized criminal group. Official Astana hasn't yet confirmed rumors of the arrest. Internal affairs agencies did not detain local authority representatives. Samruk Kazana Foundation on the left bank of Astana closed out the issue of construction of corporate kindergartens that has turned into a fiasco for Raskaliev. Political expert and the director of the Center for Social Partnership under Samruk Kazana Foundation, Nurlan Yerembetov, agreed to talk about everything during this interview except the official appeal to the General Prosecutor's Office. When did the state holding decide to find out whether the words of former governor of Atyrau region contain a hidden message calling for social hatred? As a political expert, Yerembetov is willing to comment on rather general subjects. In this situation, even the workers should be involved in the distribution of social packages instead of relying on a good old boss. Neither governor nor the chairman of the company shall determine what to do with the company profits. The company staff is the one to make this decision. Nothing could be solved by the staff with the existing rigid vertical of power in Kazakhstan and the absence of local self-regulating agencies, opposed Zauresh Batalova, president of the Fund for the Development of Parliamentarianism in Kazakhstan. The major share of the region's revenues goes to the center, and no governor is able to change this. These are the rules. I believe we need to raise the question of gubernatorial elections and the real decentralization, neither verbally nor by making any specific amendments to certain laws or regulations, but to actually hand the authority over to the regions and to set the budget in the regions, so that the region could keep the most of the budget to maintain the region itself, and the rest would go to the centers. This is the kind of policy we need. Batalova has been fighting for gubernatorial elections for 11 years. According to her, the local governors are limited in their actions and have minimum chances even to set the local budget. Birgay Raskaliev addressed the residents of Atarar region in his farewell letter, giving them a rhetorical question, asking what to do. Using the epistolary style very unusual for Kazakhstan, Raskaliev asks his countrymen, why do the basic comforts of civilization, including gas, water and electricity, are available to everyone except the oil workers? Birgay Raskaliev is generally remembered for many good paved roads that were built. Unlike before, lately it allows you to wear sandals even in heavy rain, because the storm drainage system is in place. There are beautiful bridges and the city in general has been greatly remodeled in recent years. We remember Birgay Raskaliev for the poor quality housing. 3 villages were moved to the city from Makhambet region. 47 families received housing in the 4-story apartment block, and a year later, these flats were falling apart practically before our eyes. Black mold is everywhere. There is no wind insulation. All of our children were catching a cold. We've been living here for 2 years already, and yet we cannot get the paperwork for the housing. The ongoing reaction in the media about the arrest, the embezzlement, and even Raskaliev's involvement in criminal showdowns inspired the deputies of local governments to write a letter in support of the ex-governor. 41 letter signatories reminded that the former governor was always loyal to Nur Otan Party and President Nazarbayev. The community in the region was disturbed by the negative information appearing on different Kazakh websites about the active member of Nur Otan People's Democratic Party, a reliable representative of the president, who has been promoting Nazarbayev's line of policy in our region to the last day, the former governor of the region, Birgay Raskaliev. We are convinced that these articles are aimed at destabilizing the political situation in the region. Nowadays, not only these tribal groups become stronger, they become more violent. Perhaps the ongoing social conflicts are the result of intertribal clashes. Unfortunately, the proverb, "the slaves suffer while the nobility fights," is becoming relevant in Kazakhstan. The intra-elite groups perceive rumors about the arrest of Raskaliev as a sign of the realignment of political muscles around President Nazarbayev. The reshuffle within the richest oil region promises to bring sweeping changes, starting this coming political fall.
Next on Vlast KZ. They organized actions across Germany demanding my release, wrote letters to state officials. From Russia with love. Looking back at Pussy Riot's verdict delivered by the judge of Moscow's Khamovniki District Court. Vlast KZ will return in a couple of minutes.
Главные события в Казахстане. Достоверные факты. Эксклюзивные комментарии. Читайте в Казахстане информационно-аналитический портал «Республика». Чтобы обойти блокировки, воспользуйтесь доменом respublicas.info. Вы окажетесь на так называемом прокси-портале. Специально разработанные канадскими специалистами по интернет-технологиям, прокси-порталы помогают пользователям получать информацию в тех странах, где блокируют интернет-ресурсы. В Китае, Иране, в Казахстане. Вы принимаете условия использования системы и попадаете на страницу информационно-аналитического портала «Республика». Материалы интернет-портала также доступны пользователям всемирной сети Facebook. facebook.com/respublica.kaz. Если вы хотите поделиться информацией, вам есть что рассказать, звоните в редакцию «Республики». Наши телефоны в Казахстане +7 727 273 92 95, в Москве +7 495 621 87 03.
Новости Казахстана на казахском языке смотрите в 21:00 и далее каждый нечетный час. Новости Казахстана на русском языке в 22:00 и далее каждый четный час. Новости Казахстана на английском языке смотрите в 16:30, 17:30, 18:30 и 19:30 со вторника по субботу. Время Астаны. Изготовление и размещение рекламы на канале KplusTV.
Удачное выступление наших спортсменов.
The successful performance of Kazakhstan's athletes at the 30th Olympics in London, which brought 7 gold, 1 silver and 5 bronze medals, was not the only instance of international recognition of Kazakhstan this summer. Lukpan Akhmedyarov, an independent journalist with Uralskaya Nedelya who recently survived a brutal assault, was awarded Peter Makler Award by the international NGO Reporters Without Borders for advocating freedom of the press. At the same time, while in Germany, stage theatre director and civil activist Bulat Atabayev was presented with the prestigious Goethe Medal.
Булат Манашевич, за короткий промежуток времени
Mr. Atabayev, you were able to move from one part of reality to the next in a short period of time. Very recently, you found yourself inside a detention center in Aktau. Now you are in Germany accepting a Goethe Prize. Can you please talk about how these radical changes affected you?
Я это не воспринимаю как резкую перемену. То, что было, было. Это моя история.
I don't perceive this as a radical change. What happened, happened. It is my history. I do not deny it. I knew that I would be released from prison. I knew the case wouldn't reach trial. I survived it without making a tragedy out of it. Every civilized person in Kazakhstan must spend time in jail. It is our recent trend. Too bad Vladimir Kozlov, Serik Sapargali, and Akjanat Aminov are jailed for too long. The fact that I moved from a horrible situation in my homeland to well-fed and prosperous Germany isn't strange. I have known the country for a long time, and I like it, so I am calm.
Germany has played one of the leading roles in your release.
I do not expect it myself. I did expect my friends to stand up, but I didn't expect them to organize such a force of other artists. Even my colleagues from Austria stood at the embassy doors in Berlin. That was their good attitude towards me, their gratitude for our long-standing friendship. My colleagues are not indifferent to me, to say the least, much like I am.
You were in Germany for a week. Can you talk about the goal of your visit and who you were able to see?
Чего я добился от этой встречи? Я добивался.
My first objective, since Goethe Institute invited me to receive the Goethe Prize, was to seize the opportunity and meet with Bundestag deputies. I was able to meet 7 of them, although they were in recess. Local journalists say it is rare for Bundestag deputies to put off their vacation and visit anyone. I am grateful to these deputies. What have I achieved from the meetings? I convinced them to visit Aktau, Astana, and Zhanaozen to see and hear for themselves what is taking place there, to be present at these trials as observers. Markus Lenning, the German government's Commissioner on Human Rights, promised to visit. I hope they will see it all for themselves and make their own conclusions, because Nazarbayev is obsessed with his own image.
Он озабочен своим имиджем.
As far as I know, you were not only able to visit parliamentarians, but also your colleagues, friends and acquaintances. Let us talk about Volker Schlondorf. I'd like to find out what he thinks about your stance, your relationship with Kazakh authorities, and what role he played in your life.
Volker
Schlondorf is a very famous German director, the only German director who was awarded an Oscar and recognized in international festivals. Naturally, my experience was like a nightmare for him. He can't fathom how you can murder your own people in a civilized country. How can one stand trial for his convictions? How can one be persecuted for what he said? It is barbaric to him. Of course he expressed interest, mostly in Nazarbayev. Who is it? What is it? How does one understand it? Why doesn't he value civil society or at least stand up against my arrest? He is concerned about me.
It is known that a director, much like an artist in general, must and in most cases is in opposition to current authorities. Even if they are well off, the artist and director are always in confrontation with current authorities. Can you evaluate the situation in Germany? Do your German colleagues take part in opposition campaigns? Are they allowed to express dissatisfaction with the current authorities on the situation in the country? What are the consequences and how do they compare to those in Kazakhstan?
There cannot be any comparison. Germany is, after all, a prosperous country that worked the system to minute details, and everything functions as it has to.
You held a press conference in Almaty the day after your release. Your friend Yermek Tursunov, a famous director who helped with your release, expressed the opinion that a man of art should stay out of politics and do his own job. At the time, your disagreement was fairly short, of 1 or 2 words. I want to find out, has your opinion changed at the passing of time after all these visits and the awarding of the Goethe Prize?
Человек искусства выражает свою позицию, а позиция это уже политика.
A man of art expresses his stance. That's politics already. If there is no stance in the art of the painter, then it is not art. Culture always pursues nature, but nature does not open all doors. One needs to pursue other methods, such as provocation. It is widely spread in art. Take, for example, Russia's Pussy Riot. What is it? It is a provocation. They provoked. They entered the church and started singing. They wanted to say that spirituality in the face of the church is ingrained with the authorities in Russia.
Let us try to draw provisional conclusions of your visits. What was your achievement? What have you learned? What goals have you reached? And in what mood will you be going back to your homeland?
У меня не было опыта такой работы.
I had no experience in this type of work. I am my own director, my own politician, and my own dissident. I am my own Atabayev. This is how I lived. I was more of a dissident than a politician. Now I want to learn to be a politician. I observe how international funds such as Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, Reporters Without Borders work. I am studying their materials. What they do is noble. Only then can we support our compatriots, provide them with a voice, fight for moral purity, and attract other cultures to the fight.
Репортеры без границ.
At the end of the program, we want to return to the trial over 3 young women in Russia. In February, during the presidential elections, they came to the Moscow's Central Cathedral of Christ the Savior and, acting as punk rock band Pussy Riot, performed what they labeled a punk prayer services calling Mother of God to chase Putin away. It was the musicians' protest, as they later said, against the lasting and vicious union of Vladimir Putin and Russian Orthodox Church. The swearing of the 13th world chess champion Garry Kasparov was quoted by all leading news agencies of the world. Kasparov was arrested near Moscow's Khamovniki district court on the day the judge announcing the verdict to members of the punk band Pussy Riot. Later, the authorities tried to accuse Kasparov of biting the warrant officer, while about 50 people ended up in paddy wagons. It all started on February 21st at the height of Maslenitsa week. Pussy Riot staged a punk prayer service in the Russian main church, Moscow's Cathedral of Christ the Savior. The young women climbed the pulpit and sang an obscene song about the close bond between the state and the church. Their performance lasted only 40 seconds as the band was escorted outside by the security only to be arrested by the police. This was the onset of the most notorious case in Russia in the past decade. After all, the Russian Orthodox Church explicitly asked to appropriately punish the girls. They defaced the church. Although insulting religious feelings is penalized with 15 days of arrest or a fine, the young band members, 2 of whom have small kids, faced a total of 7 years in prison.
Дубинки заряжены, крики все громче, разомни мышцы рук и ног, полицейский лижет у тебя между ног.
At the same time, Pussy Riot became notorious long before the cathedral incident. Surprise performances took place outside subway stations, on the roofs of trams, and even at the Red Square.
Pussy Riot means rebelled women, feminists, and it means that women are fed up with the sexist regime, with the situation, with this political system.
Almost every song is against Putin, which makes the opposition believe this was the main reason for the band's persecution. It is Putin's personal revenge. The first of the president-premier duo to express thoughts about the band's public performances was Dmitry Medvedev during a Q&A with reporters of the most influential Russian TV channels.
На мой взгляд, участники того, что было сделано, получили ровно то, на что рассчитывали.
They got what they wanted, fame. On the other hand, Vladimir Putin kept silent throughout the trial. It was only during his official visit to UK in August when he made a public statement, which many interpreted as a possible pardon. I don't think they should be punished so severely. Many global celebrities, including Paul McCartney, Yoko Ono and Stephen Fry, expressed their support for the previously unknown band. Red Hot Chili Peppers wore a Pussy Riot t-shirt while performing in Moscow. Madonna even spoke of the band during her concert in St. Petersburg.
I just want to say a few words about Pussy Riot.
The verdict was announced while hundreds of people chanted outside the courthouse. This was a perfect illustration of the controversy that rocked the core of Russian society after the punk prank. On one hand, the public was represented by offended religious activists. You should have let her sing in your kitchen. On the other, the opposition calling the trial the Inquisition and girls political prisoners. Shame on Russia. No miracle happened. The judge, whose face was not shown during the broadcast of the verdict announcement, sentenced the girls to 2 years in prison for disorderly and insulting behavior. The defense said the verdict had nothing to do with the law and hinted it was an order from Kremlin. The decision was made at the top. It was Putin's personal decision. Political scientist Dmitry Oreshkin believes that despite the issued verdict, the authorities actually lost the trial. The state and church created such a fuss out of the silly prank that they made themselves look ridiculous. People began to despise the authorities as these girls were made into enemies. They were trying to tie them up and punish them in front of the public in a showcase trial. But the state already lost, as it looks rather stupid and illiterate now. According to political scientists, the more Kremlin only further rocks the boat with its recent actions. Given that new protests are scheduled in fall in Russia, only God knows now where that boat will sail. You were watching Vlast KZ on KPLUS channel, where we review all the trends, highlights and personalities of the past week. Goodbye.